All right, welcome everyone to another episode of CRNA School Prep Academy podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Fennell, CRNA, and today we have a special guest, Jeff Molter, and the topic today is going to be covering kind of how current nurse anesthesia residents can get involved in local state associations, as well as the AANA, and also why you should do so. A little bit of backstory on how I got to know Jeff. Kind of when I first started mentoring students, I actually reached out to Jeff and because I'd heard my students talk about his business or the business lecture that he gives across the country to different programs and students. And I was really impressed with that. And I was like, oh, I would like to talk to him and kind of, hear for myself, because I personally had never heard the lecture. And one of the first things Jeff said to me, he goes, do you donate to your PAC? And I kind of was like, is this bribery? And he goes, yes, it is. And I was like, I immediately knew I loved him. I was like, okay, I really like you. I'm like, cool. I'm like, I will donate to my state PAC. And now I do so every month. But he really enlightened me. And I'm so grateful for his mentorship. Jeff has the biggest heart. He's mentored thousands of CRNAs. I mean, it's like you've lived 10 lives. I don't know how you do it. But yeah, he's our regional director for Region 6 of the AANA. And so Jeff, go ahead and give everyone an introduction on who you are in case they don't know you yet. I'm sure most people probably do, because I don't know how you tend to know everyone, but you do.
No, thanks, Jenny, for the nice introduction. But yeah, I've been a CRNA for 21 or 22 years. I graduated in 99, 2000 in that area. And the first 8 or 9 years of my career, I was a member of the AANA and I paid my yearly dues, but I really was not involved in my state association. I really wasn't involved in the national organization. And it took another CRNA to kind of invite me into the mix and say, hey, Jeff, you should come down to a state meeting. You should get involved in the state association. And when I started to get involved, I realized how important it was to get involved in the state association, especially when it comes to advocacy and advancing our profession. As far as practice, I've worked in every different type of clinical practice environment. I've worked in an anesthesia care team model, large tertiary centers. I've also worked in CRNA only models, and I've owned an anesthesia practice, started a couple side businesses. Scott Urigal and I started Block Buddy several years ago. We also started an education company where we all offer ultrasound guided training for nerve blocks. Also worked with Tom Baraball in the setup of the Society of Opioid-Free Anesthesia. And I just love the profession, and I love talking to students and potential students because they have so much energy. They bring a lot of energy to the table. And I feel very blessed to be a CRNA for all these years. And I love giving back, and I like helping people when I can. So
yeah, awesome. And that's interesting. You said that you, again, kind of like me, I was paying my dues, my membership, but I wasn't plugged into the community, and I didn't really even understand the importance of it. So you were that person for me. You kind of enlightened me and opened my eyes as far as why it's so important, which is why I'm really excited to bring this episode to you guys. So if you're listening, even if you're not a student, I encourage you to listen to this episode, because you're going to walk away with so much insight and just how powerful our community and career is, and why you should be more involved. So also, I just wanted to tell everyone too that, what's really, I also love about Jeff is the fact that, like he kind of mentioned, he has a very broad range of experience. And you also have your MBA. So you're very business savvy, and I love that about you. And so you kind of can bring a really unique perspective to this profession, as well as the students, and the fact that you've been able to kind of not only master the art of anesthesia, but you're also a businessman. So anyhow, so I'm excited to have you here. Thank you for joining me today. So we'll go ahead and get into the questions today. Kind of to start off, I kind of want to go kind of to the basics, and what is the purpose, or I should say, what does the AANA do as far as how do they serve our profession as a nurse anesthesiologist?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, the AANA, the mission of the AANA is to promote and protect the art and science of nurse anesthesiology. And it is the only organization that represents us as CRNAs. And when the ANA was set up back in 1931 in Cleveland, Ohio, they were very smart how they went about organizing the ANA. And with the ANA, basically, when you're a student, you're an automatic associate member of the organization. I know there's a small fee to that. I think most schools pay that. I'm not sure exactly, but students are automatic associate members. Once you graduate and you take your exam and you pass, you'll get either mail or email from the ANA asking you to join the association or the organization. And I believe the dues are $645 a year. And what happens when you join the AANA, you automatically become a member of your state organization. That's usually based on where you live. So I live in the state of Ohio. When I pay my yearly dues to the ANA, I'm automatically a member to the Ohio State Association of Nurse Anesthetists. Now, you can change that to the state of where you practice, because sometimes people live in Ohio, but they practice in Indiana or Pennsylvania. So you can let the ANA know that, you know, you're an ANA member, you live in Ohio, but you want to belong to the Pennsylvania Association of Nurse Anesthetists. What happens is the ANA actually takes $232.50 of your yearly dues and sends that to the state, your state association that you choose or where you live. So basically you have a dual membership when you join the ANA, and the ANA and your state association provide you with many benefits, conferences, CEU tracking, you know, mingling with other CRNAs. There's a lot of practice documents on the website. Of course, they do advocacy for us at the state, national level. And I believe being a member is probably the most basic thing that any CRNA can do once you become a CRNA. And I think when you first called me, that's one of the things I always ask people is, are you a member? Because I feel like, you know, first of all, about 90% of CRNAs in the country are members. I wish it was 100%, but I feel like it's an obligation to be a member. And because I've been a member ever since I became a CRNA, I feel others should be members. And when people call me and they want advice and things, I'm all about giving people advice, and I give out free advice, but I want you to also be a member like myself so that I feel like we're advancing this profession together. And then that little icing on the cake was, do you give to the PAC? Because that's another topic that we could talk about in a little bit too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because that same, you guys, like when I graduated, same thing. I paid my ANA dues every year. There was one year that I had a difficult time between having a child and like all these other expenses of daycare that I do remember. I think I let it lapse and then I renewed the following year. You know, but so you don't, I guess it was one of those things where I remember when it happened, I thought, oh no, like what, I didn't even honestly know it had lapsed. But it is, you know, I think it's like $700, I want to say, because mine just renewed actually. And I actually didn't realize it took some of that and put it into your state association. But what I can say is it's so vital as a profession. Essentially, if you go through all this work to become a CRNA, you really owe it to yourself to support your national association. And like Jeff said, it's the only organization that's going to support you in your profession and advocate for you on a national level. So it's so vital that you do that. And you can actually set up your membership to automatically renew, which is what I have now, so I don't forget. So again, you can actually just set it to like automatically, and they will notify you when it's going to pull on your credit card. So just so you know, you can set it up to automatically happen. So if you're like me and you forget things, don't check your email often enough, just set up to automatically renew. But yeah, so those are all really great points. And I guess let's kind of get into the PAC, because when you asked me if I donate to the PAC, I was like, PAC, what is PAC? And I'm like, I'm a member of AANA. And so I remember you're like, well, no, that's different. I'm like, well, so let's go ahead and explain what the difference is between becoming a member of the AANA and your state association, as well as donating to the PAC.
Yeah, so when you're a member of your association can do things that help advocate for you, but your association, it's against the law for your association to actually give a check of money to a state representative or a federal legislator like a congressman or a senator. So we have to actually raise PAC money separately from your organizational dues, and that's where the PAC comes into play. And for instance, in the state of Ohio, about a year and a half ago, we passed a bill to help us do perioperative ordering. And that was a multi-year, a lot of hard work by a lot of CRNAs and students, talking to legislators, going to golf outings, going to fundraising events. But the key there is if you looked at our PAC over the last 10 years, the last 3 or 4 years, we quadrupled the giving to our PAC, which then allowed us to write checks to these legislators. So we go to a golf outing, we give a check to a legislator for $5,000. We have a fundraiser, we're able to give a legislator a check for $10,000, and it's from, the CRNAs and SRNAs from the state of Ohio. And, you can't buy votes per se. That of course is illegal, but when you donate money, it does maybe give you a larger voice at the table and gives you a little bit of power. Maybe they're more likely to listen to your side of the story, where I didn't feel like we had that here in Ohio 20 years ago. We thought we were at the table, but we were not at the table because we weren't even coming close to other organizations when it came to giving PAC checks to legislators. So it's important to note that you're going to have a state PAC, but there's also a federal PAC. So whatever state you live in, whether it's Oklahoma, Ohio, Pennsylvania, your state association is going to have a PAC for your state representatives. But the AANA also has a PAC for federal legislators like congressmen, congresswomen, and senators. So there are 2 different PACs. And as a student, it's nice if you're able to give a little bit, but I think it's more important as a student. If you don't have the money, it's understandable. You don't have to give to the PAC, but look at your, stay in tune with your state association, because I know in Ohio, we frequently have events. Like just a couple of weeks ago, we had an event with the Ohio Legislative Black Caucus, and we asked CRNAs to contribute $100 to attend so we could donate that to the representatives. But students, you can come for free. We usually get generous CRNAs that donate enough money, where as a student, you can come for free, or as a resident, I should say. So
that's really great point. And where would they find this information out? Because I know, like for me, I mean, there's so many moving parts and they're busy students. So how can they stay on top of when these events become available to them, other than just continuously checking a website? Is there a way they can sign up for like email notifications, or like how would they know to?
yeah, that's a great question. And speaking on the state of Ohio, it seems like our Ohio Facebook page is probably the most active area, where there are updates put on there when we're going to have a fundraiser or a golf outing. I know a couple weeks ago we had a golf outing with State Rep John Cross, and I put a thing on there. If anyone's interested in coming, please come. I put the date and time, and people could sign up on there. I know that if you're on our Ohio email list, we try to send out emails when these things come up. But I would say that the most updated area, at least in our state, is on our Facebook page.
Okay.
Ohio CRNA SRNA Facebook page. And in order to get on the page, you have to request admittance to the page, and the administrators just want to make sure you're a student in a program. I think you have to give them your name from your Ohio nursing license or something like that. But that's one way of knowing. As far as websites, I mean, OSANA, Ohio State Association of Nurse Anesthetists, their website is osana.org. And, we have information on there on meetings, but I'd have to say that when it comes to these legislative events, we usually don't update them as much as we do on the Facebook page. And when it comes to the AANA has a website, it's AANA.com. And if you want to look at like the committees and things that are going on, you have to actually sign in with your username and password. And there's a governance and leadership tab. And once you go there, you'll see events and things going on with the AANA.
All right, awesome. And you guys, I'm going to post the links that I can post. I'm going to post it in the show notes. And I encourage you, I won't post the Ohio image because you might get a plethora of people asking to join that group, because it is really key that it's just Ohio SRNAs and CRNAs. However, if you are an SRNA, please look for your own state group to join on Facebook. A lot of them do have this, like Jeff said. Otherwise, going to their website and making sure that you're, reading through their website and be on their email list. And then I will post the link for the AANA, so you can, check that place out. But yeah, these are great opportunities that I wish I would have known about. And again, like you said, as a student, a lot of times they're free and it just keeps you plugged in. And so if you can donate, great. If you can't, like Jeff said, it's understandable. A lot of students are on a very tight budget. However, do not forget the importance when you graduate, because again, like Jeff said, CRNAs support students to go. And so supporting both national and state PACs is key to not only for yourself and your own profession, but to help the students be more involved as well, to learn about these things. So your support is really key for that. So PAC, you guys, stands for Political Action Committee. Because again, I was, when you first asked me, I'm like, what is PA? What is a PAC? And I'm, so it's definitely, it's one of those things where I think if I would have known about it sooner, I would have understood it and I would have seen the value in it, but I just simply didn't know. And so that's why I think this episode is going to be so vital to just increase the amount of activity that we, and the good that we can do as a career, as a community, for one another. But that being said too, like I said, there's a national and a state. And same thing, you can actually set up like the state one. I donate, I think I just set it up currently for $25 a month, which I know I need to increase that, but you got to start somewhere, and so that's just $25 a month to support Ohio. And then I make a one-time donation every year to the national one, which I think last time I did was like 500 or something like that. So once you become a CRNA, there is a CRNA, SRNA, Tang, I want to say, is that right? Tang. I think they keep changing the name of the Facebook group.
Oh, the TNAG, that's the nurse anesthesiologist group on Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a really active Facebook group. I believe there's 10,000 members on there. There's students and CRNAs, and that's a fantastic group. And again, there's moderators in that group. And if you're a student, I highly recommend that you apply to get into that group, because they put a lot of stuff on there that's very helpful. Very helpful.
Right, 100%. And I will link to that group. Although I do encourage you, unless you're a current active student, don't request the join, because they do also screen for that. But it's a really good way to kind of stay plugged into the community. And again, they do these fundraisers where they raise money for certain events within their national association in the PAC, like I said. So it just allows you to kind of see, what is the money going towards? What am I contributing towards? So I know, like for me, when I give money, I'm like, well, what is it going towards? And so when you're part of these Facebook communities, you're actually physically getting to see, okay, my money's being used for this bill. It's being, like you said, unfortunately, the name of the game, you guys, when these legislators don't know us from Joe Schmo, essentially you're paying for their time to spend with you, to get to know you, to hear your voice, and to bring you to the table. So because they're not medical, they don't understand what our profession is. And the only way they're going to understand is to spend time with us. And so again, you're essentially supporting them so they can then spend time getting to know you and what you, and have you advocate for the profession. Whether that's a golf outing or any other kind of event, it's really, really important to make sure we're supporting that cause. Anything else you want to add to that, Jeff?
Yeah, I do want to add to that. And I could say one of the most frequent questions or concerns we get to is that when people give their money to the state or national PAC, a lot of times they'll say, hey, I'm a Democrat, or I'm a Republican. I want to make sure my money gets steered towards the Democrats, the Republicans. And when it comes to your state and federal PAC, they do strategic giving. So they give money to people in positions where they think it advances our profession the best. So in some states, maybe more of your money goes to the Republican Party. Maybe in some states, more of your money goes to the Democratic Party. But at the end of the day, your state PAC or federal PAC is trying to steer that money where it's going to do the most good for you as a CRNA or as a resident nurse anesthetist. We sometimes get people that their personal issues might be something, and they don't agree with us giving money to a candidate that's completely opposite to their personal issues. And I understand that, but if you want to advance your profession, sometimes you have to give the money to your PAC and let them decide how to spend that money for you, essentially. I also would like to say that when you go to these events, whether it's a golf outing or a fundraiser for a representative, and you're giving money you also can give a personal check if you would like. And I know that sometimes when I go to these events, I'll also give a personal check from myself in addition to whatever our state association gives. So also, I think as students, I know it's kind of nerve wracking. I mean, we're all type A personalities. You think you need to go to these events and have a speech ready and talk in front of the representative about how great it is to be a nurse anesthetist or a resident nurse anesthetist. But most of these fundraisers are very laid back. I mean, people have a couple drinks, they have some appetizers. You'll get to meet other students or residents. You'll get to meet other CRNAs. There's a lot of great conversations that happen. So just go to one. And if you're nervous, bring one of your buddies from one of your classmates with you and go to an event. I mean, I can't tell you how many or residents come to our fundraisers and they have a good time and they want to come to all of them, like if they have time.
Right,
So
exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I know me being the way I am, I would say I'm shy. And so I would say I would be intimidating, especially given I know how I was as a student. I would feel like, who am I? Like, who am I to come to these meetings? But I encourage you, like Jeff said, just try it. And again, bring one of your friends if it makes you feel more comfortable, or one of your classmates, and just get exposure to it. Because really, you guys, the networking is huge. And it's not like a networking like you want to get anything out of someone. It's just being friendly. It's just being people, really, just making those connections, because you never know. And I would say that's one of the huge benefits of being more active in the AANA and your state associations, is because you meet so many amazing people. And like my relationship with Jeff, you guys, Jeff has impacted my life in a huge way, more than you'll ever know. And I know he's impacted so many other people's lives. And just because we're friendly, we have a relationship and we help each other out when we need it. And so I can't speak to that enough, how important that is to not only, it doesn't have to be because you want something out of someone. It could just be because you're being a human being, you're being kind, you're being friendly. And when someone needs your help, you're going to help. And so naturally, when you create friendships, that's what you do as a friend. And so this is really all about relationship building. And my next question is actually, because I know I would probably say this as a student, if someone were to, present to me a political action committee, I would have probably been like, well, what if you don't like politics and you'd rather not be involved in politics? And what would you say to that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I know the word politics gets thrown into PAC all the time, and I could see why. I mean, we're involved with legislators and congressmen and senators, so people say politics, but really, I'd like to use the word advocacy instead. I'd have to say that I never consider myself "quote unquote" politically active. I'm not, a diehard Democrat or Republican. I mean, I haven't been a very political. My profession. I love my profession. I want to advance my profession or our profession. So to me, sometimes that word politics is used kind of in an ugly way. And especially in the last 5 years in this country, the word politics is kind of an ugly word. But really it's just being an advocate. It's just being an advocate for your profession and trying to advance this profession for all of us. And it's so important too, because at the end of the day, the legislators make these decisions at the state and national level that impact your practice. And it's amazing. And, for all these years, we've thought that we need to market ourselves to the public, to the patients, and they are very important people. However, when it comes to legislative decisions, it's the legislators that decide yes or no on a legislative topic that impact your practice. So very important.
Awesome. I love that, advocacy. So it should be changed to AAC.
They do that.
Advocacy Action Committee.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I have to say too, it's a game. I don't want to say game, but it's something that is always going to be there and it's going to never be over. So from the time you're a student to the time you graduate to the time you retire, there is always going to be a topic or something that's going on with advocacy that you're going to have to confront. So, and like in Ohio, we see that. So we had a bill where we wanted to have the ability to write pre and post-op orders on our patients. We worked really hard to pass this bill. And we're so excited. We passed this bill. It's the first time we've ever passed a bill in Ohio related to CRNA practice. anesthesiologist assistants are putting a bill out there where they want to do the same thing that we're doing. So again, it's continuous, and you have to always be in the game. And I understand when you become a CRNA, if you don't have the time, but you're going to have the money, you're going to have the ability to donate to the PAC and pay your dues so other people can do it for you. So yeah.
Right. It's an amazing thing. Like you said, if you invest in obviously, if you go to school, you do all the work, you need to make sure you're supporting your profession. But I think you made some great points that, regardless, you just have to kind of embrace it because it's your profession that you're supporting. You can set your differences aside, whether that's a political issue. Try not to bring that into your profession, and understand that your state associations and national associations are going to take your money and spend it the best way possible to support you and your profession. And I know, like me, I would love to see I have 3 children, so I would love to see them go into anesthesia as a nurse. So, I mean, I want this to be around. I want to be just as good of a career path for them when they, venture on their college career. So it's key, you guys, not just for your lifetime, but for generations to come. So we have to take action now, so that way our future generations of nurse anesthetists can, go on to have the same career that we've been blessed with as well. So let's kind of get into a little bit so if you are a current student, what are some committees that they can actually serve on, whether that's through the AANA or your state associations? Anything off the top of your head that you can think of that, a lot of students?
At the state level, your state association is going to have various committees available depending on what state you're in. I would say that most states do have all states have a political action committee. Many states have a programs committee where the committee helps develop content for upcoming meetings. Many states have a communications committee. They also have some professional wellness committees. Our state in Ohio, we actually have a student committee. We actually have a student board in the state of Ohio. I believe Michigan also has a student board in their state association. The state associations usually have a governance relations committee. And I know in Ohio, we have a state governance relations committee and a national governance relations committee. So tons and tons of committees, every state, maybe a little bit different. The AANA probably has more committees than your state. I know at the national level, we have the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. We have a bylaws committee, a professional development committee. We have a practice committee. If you want to be involved in a committee at the national level, it's a little bit more, the process to get on a committee is a little bit more detailed. You have to fill out an actual application to be selected to be on a committee. And that selection process happens once a year, I believe generally in the spring of each year. So the committees for this fiscal year have already been selected. If you're interested, you should see some information coming out, I believe in November, December, about applying to be on a national committee. In your state association, it's usually a little bit less formal. In Ohio, you can email our executive director, Peggy Blankenship. And if you're looking to be on a particular committee in the state of Ohio, you could tell her you're interested. And then the person that's chairing that committee would reach out to you and say, hey, we have a spot, or maybe you can be on the committee next year or whatever. I know that it's been really weird with COVID the last year and a half, and it's been very difficult because we haven't been meeting face to face. And a lot of these committees are meeting via Zoom. And of course, there's pros and cons to Zoom, right? But I almost feel like in the last year and a half, there's been a little bit of a lull in the activity in our state national association as far as people volunteering their time and energy. So if you're interested, please reach out. You could always email me and I could try to set you up with someone. My email is pretty simple. It's my name, Jeff Molter @me.com. So
and I can put that in the show notes too. But I know, like for me, like you guys, a lot of these, like if you go to see these descriptions, like on the AANA.com, they actually give you descriptions of what the committee is all about. Cause I know for me, some of these terms, I'm not as familiar. I'm like, what are bylaws? So, cause I'm just completely just not familiar with this stuff. So they kind of can give you descriptions on what you would be doing in the committees. And again, if you're questioning, just email and say, hey, I'm interested in this committee, but what does that mean? What does that look like for me and my time and the activities that we're going to be doing and working towards? So never hesitate to ask questions if you're not familiar, but you're interested. And like Jeff said, a lot of it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. It could just be a meeting like once or twice a year. And so really it's not a giant commitment. So definitely check it out and look into it. And you can always move around. So if you get on one committee, and you're like, well, it really wasn't my thing, try a different one.
Absolutely.
Right.
Or join with a friend or a classmate if you're nervous about it.
Yeah, exactly. Phone a friend, have a buddy system.
Mhm.
So what would students, I guess, if they're thinking about attending the National Association meeting or even a state association meeting, what are some of the things that they can gain from doing so? Because I know, like, as a student, I always thought, okay, that's only for CRNAs. Like I don't have a place there. And I think that's changed since I was in school. At least I know this last annual Congress, they did a really great job because SRNAs could go for free. So I was crazy, like promoting them, like, go, you need to go. But I think as a student back when I was even in school, which wasn't really that long ago, it was 2012, 2013. I just remember not feeling, even though I know I paid my dues, I remember thinking most of the topics wouldn't pertain to me, which was, I don't know why I thought that, but I guess I want to clarify that. What can students gain from being active in these conferences?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I'm sure as a student or a resident nurse anesthetist, you don't want to sit in on a lecture on anatomy and physiology of the cardiopulmonary system after you've been doing that while you're a resident, right? I'm just like you. When I was in school 20 some years ago, I had two program directors and they were both very involved in the state and national association, but at the time I got this feeling from them that they felt like as a student or resident, they felt like you didn't have time to be involved. So they never really invited you to be involved. And I think that things have changed, at least I know in our state association, we've been very accepting of students in the last 10 years, especially. And at a lot of our programs or meetings, we have a spring and a fall meeting in Ohio. We actually have, of course, a discounted rate for students. And we also, a lot of students get sponsored, so the meetings are free. They get a lot of networking opportunities to meet other students and meet other CRNAs. A lot of times we'll actually have programming set up just for students. So we'll have things on investing or paying off loans or debt. What's it like to be, a new grad in your first year out of training? How do you study for your CRNA exam and things like that? So I know in our state, we've tried to be way more welcoming of students, and it's been great. It's made a huge difference in our state association. I know at the National Association, same thing. If you're a resident or student, they have a reduced fee to go to a meeting. There is a student sponsorship thing where a lot of students go to the meetings for free. A lot of great lecture and contents that you can go and be a part of. But I really think the networking is huge. You meet so many people in those kind of informal parts of the meeting, and when they have the social events, I think that really goes a long way. And I also know that I know you have a lot of RNs on your podcast that want to be residents or students. I know in the state of Ohio, if you're an RN, you can register for our state meeting and they charge you the same amount as a student. At the national meeting, unfortunately, I think they charge you the full price of the meeting, unfortunately. Hopefully we can change that over the next year or two. I've been talking with some people at AANA about that because I think that, you're a future CRNA, and I think that you should have that opportunity to attend a meeting. So
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I think that that's a relatively new thing that because I get tons of people who are like, I really want to, network within the community. I want to be involved. I know I'm not there yet. I'm not accepted yet, but I'm committed. And so it would be nice to be able to allow them kind of a sneak peek at, what would be involved in this profession. And those are the type of people too, that if they do become a CRNA, they're going to be involved in your pack, they're going to be involved in the national, because they already were even before they even gain acceptance. And so I think we need to be encouraging that and promoting that in a way that will create future leaders within our own profession. Because yeah, typically the type of students who are interested in doing that are the ones who are more motivated, who are going to not stop and who are going to achieve becoming a CRNA, at least in my opinion. But, you know, as far as networking goes, you guys, so on top of the topics that they covered that really pertain to just students, and networking is really huge. I know the whole virtual thing is not super ideal, but a lot of these virtual platforms now allow like breakout rooms where you can actually go get one-to-one FaceTime with certain people. And, you know, so there is that piece that even if it is virtual, it's still going to be worth your time to go. I also wanted to kind of reflect on my involvement with CANA, which is California's Association of Nurse Anesthesiology. They actually put on an entire whole 2-day event for nurse anesthesia residents, and all of the agenda was to help them. And I was actually able to speak at that. And what did I speak on? Oh, I think it was how to go about looking for a job after school, and what are some things you should be doing now as a student to help you get a job after school and what that looks like. So I presented that. So again, all the material, and that was free. That was completely free. Now all of them are not going to be free, but there's just stuff like that where if you start looking now and start keeping your eye on what's going on inside your state association, national association, you're going to find opportunities like that, that are going to be such a great, valuable resource for you. So definitely just please go to the websites, look around, and make sure you're keeping an eye out. And of course, I try my best to post when I hear about things, and check out the Facebook groups, which is another great way. So we kind of went over, you know, what you gained from going to these conferences. I guess, what are some career and personal benefits of getting involved? I know we talked about networking, but, you know, and I really think people don't understand that it's not just about networking. It's also, you never know who someone knows. And so it could lead to career opportunities as a CRNA, or even as an SRNA once you become a CRNA. So let's maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll say that when you get involved in your state or national organization and you come to some of the meetings and the committee days, if you join a committee, a lot of times your association will have some training sessions. You know, I know in Ohio, every year we try to change up the topic. Like one year it might be leadership, one year it might be advocacy. But when you actually attend the face-to-face meetings, I could say that I learned a lot. I became a better professional, a better person, a better CRNA by being involved in my state association, because they supplied me with things like media training, leadership, public speaking, you know, board development, just various different types of programs that have made me a better person. And I think that's one of the benefits that you get out of serving your state and national organization, is they actually help you become a more well-rounded person. And, you know, you're working with people that, you know, have a lot of like-mindedness, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad, but it's just great to work with other professionals and meet people from other parts of the state and other parts of the country where maybe they practice completely different than you and have different things that they need. So I don't know. I think it's great. I recommend it for everybody. You could always try it, and if you don't like it, you could always, you know, back out of it. But for most of you, I think you'll like it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think, and I know I'm speaking for myself, when that the whole idea of it was pretty intimidating for me. But I think one of the first meetings I went to was actually right before COVID got really bad. It was in March, and I happened to go visit family in Dayton, Ohio, and they happened to have a conference there. I'm like, oh, perfect timing. I'll just go spend my day at this conference. And I got to learn, you know, QZ billing and stuff that I never learned about before. And I got to meet some really great people that are they're practicing in the state of Ohio, that own their own CRNA businesses. And it was a great way to kind of, and I actually got to see a schoolmate that I hadn't seen since school. I mean, it was just kind of like, oh, and she was from Cincinnati. So it just, you know, the community's small, and it was a fun way to just, again, get to know people within your community and learn. And again, it made me a better provider because now I can share that with my students. And ultimately, when you're practicing as a CRNA, you guys, no matter where you're practicing, for the most part, you're probably going to have students, or if not a student, you're going to probably have someone job shadow you. So really practicing anesthesia is not just about practicing anesthesia. Sure, you have to be a good provider, you have to provide good care, but part of your profession is professional development within your profession. And so when you take the initiative to grow as a person, like Jeff said, public speaking and learning about, to kind of get involved and kind of learn some of these, business terms and what it means, because essentially business is part of your profession. You become a better provider in a sense that you are supportive and you're an advocate for your own profession, which you would then pass on to your students. You would then pass on to other people in the community, because believe it or not, when you talk even to your friends and family who don't know anything about CRNA, if you're more educated in the business of anesthesia and the advocacy of your own profession, you are therefore advocating and supporting your own profession and kind of spreading the knowledge to other people who otherwise wouldn't know. And they'd be like, wow, Jenny really knows her stuff about her profession. And she's very, speaks very passionately about it. And it just makes people kind of respect you in a sense that they know how valuable you are in the community as an anesthesia provider. And so that really should be something you strive to do from day one that you enter in this career. I looked at some of the other questions, Jeff, and it looks like we kind of actually answered some of them already through some of their other questions. But I guess I kind of want to end this podcast with, why would you say involvement in supporting the national and state PACs is really like, what's the big picture? Why is it so important? And I know I think we kind of touched on this, but this is kind of like a roundup of some of the key takeaways.
I think, again, it just goes back to promoting and protecting your profession. And a lot of us think that, things are going to be great and you're going to come out of school or you're going to be have a great job and be making a nice large income. And that's great. But if you're not advocating or donating money so others can advocate for you, trust me, those privileges are going to go away. There are going to be other people that want to encroach on your scope of practice. Let's face it, AAs are spreading around the country right now, and they're trying to take a lot of our jobs. And it's just important that you continually advocate. Some things maybe that you do as a CRNA, it's very nice right now that we have all these tools to make our job easier, like video laryngoscopes and ultrasound to do nerve blocks. But if you think about it, that may make it easier for other professionals to be doing your job. And if other people can do your job, do you think you're going to be making what you make right now? Do you think you're going to be enjoying that lifestyle? Right now, post-COVID, there's a huge shortage of anesthesia providers. And with that being said, it seems like the salaries have gone up. There's a lot of locum positions out there posting very large dollar amounts for hourly rates. And I'm not sure that that's sustainable. I'm not sure that the health economy is going to sustain that. So, are other professionals out there going to encroach on our turf and try to take your job, or are we going to have, more residents coming out of school or what? But it's just important that we're continually have our finger on the pulse of what's going on in healthcare, and that we're continually advocating. And one other website I wanted to mention, which I didn't say earlier, it's called anesthesiafacts.com. And it's a website that has facts on there about CRNA practice and what we bring to the table and all the various studies out there that say how safe we are. But I want to direct your attention to the upper right-hand corner of that website. There's a button on there that says Take Action. If you click on that Take Action button, it's going to ask you to put in some of your information, your name, your address, your phone number, and it's going to actually generate a letter to your congressman or congresswoman asking them to support us gaining full practice authority in the Veterans Administration. This is something that's been very important at the national level for us for several years. The other advanced practice nurses have full practice authority in the VA system. And as CRNAs, we were left out of that full practice authority. So if you could please do me a favor and go to that tab and say Take Action. It's very simple, takes less than 5 minutes. It's a letter that's going to be generated to your congressman or congresswoman, basically asking them to support us practicing to the full scope of our practice. I'm sorry, Jenny, that was a lot.
No, that I'm glad you mentioned that. I will definitely make
uh,
sure I put that in there. Is that who runs that website? I know I've been there before, but I can't.
I mean, it's our association runs that
Okay,
website. It's basically a CRNA advocacy website. It's
gotcha.
anesthesiafacts.com.
Okay,
And there's a bunch of tabs at the top that
yeah,
have studies that prove that we're cost effective and that we're
okay,
safe and things like that. So it's really meant to give you information on you know, how safe we are and how cost effective we are, and to give you some material to back up, you know, what you're saying basically.
yeah.
So,
No, that's great. And I love how you point out too, you guys, obviously with a lot of things, even nursing in general, everything's really inflated right now. That's not necessarily a good thing. I know a lot of people are like, oh, cool, but that's not, like Jeff said, it's not sustainable. And typically when that kind of stuff happens, it puts the spotlight on you, like, we have a problem here. Why is there spending so much? How can we decrease the spending? And so the spotlight is on us right now. And if that means bringing in PAs, AAs to lower the cost of anesthesia, that it's again, we're have the spotlight in a negative way. I mean, I know it might feel good for your wallets now, but it doesn't mean sustainable. Okay. And so, not that we want to be not paid well, but at the same time, we need a healthy balance of up and down. And if we can't supply more CRNAs to fill that void, they're going to find other ways to do so. And so that's why these legislators who are making these decisions need to understand the difference in what exactly CRNAs do versus an AA versus a PA. And that's going to create job protection for you. So when these spotlights are on us, they're not going to go out there and look for other ways to fill that void. And again, they just don't know. A lot of them don't know. And so that's part of our role in our profession, is to educate them. And then that can happen through supporting your state PACs, sending this letter. Again, that's anesthesiafacts.com, in the upper right-hand corner that says take action. Simple, 5 minutes, hit the button, generates an email, boom, done. So what's that?
It cost you nothing to do it.
Exactly. It's just 2 minutes of your time. So please, if you're listening to this, I encourage you to, at least at the very minimum, take action on this right now. You can be an RN that wants to become a CRNA. If you want to enter this profession, you should start supporting it today, which means send a 2-minute letter to the state legislator. That's going to help support the profession you want to get into. So that's really, really going to be key and vital to your future career. And Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an honor to have you on the podcast. We're going to be seeing more of Jeff in the future. So thank you so much. And yeah, you will be in touch as usual. We're phone buddies, and I hope to meet you in person someday.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me on your podcast. Thanks for all that you and Richard do for the community, and you guys are doing great things. And thank you for letting me be a part of it. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.